First contact, dire consequence. The colony on Proxima Centauri had celebrated its 12th anniversary just 3 days before the Vespid Dominion arrived. 12 years of struggling against an alien atmosphere, building geodesic domes, establishing hydroponics facilities, and creating a fragile but functional society on humanity's first extrasolar colony. 12 years of being entirely on their own, 4 light years from Earth with only occasional supply drops and transmissions. Ilara Chen stood on the observation deck of Communications Hub Alpha, watching the sunset paint the rocky landscape in hues of crimson and amber. At 32, she'd spent over a third of her life on this world, having arrived fresh out of the academy when the colony was barely established. As the colony's communications director, she was responsible for the tenuous link to Earth, messages that took 4 years to arrive, 4 more for a response. "Beautiful evening," said Director Marcus Reynolds, joining her at the viewport. "Hard to believe 12 years have passed." Ilara nodded. "I was just thinking that. We've come so far from those first temporary habitats." "New Athens now houses 10,000 people," Reynolds said with pride. "Not bad for humanity's first interstellar outpost." The proximity alert blared, startling them both. Ilara rushed to the console, hands flying across the display. "Multiple objects entering the system at high velocity," she reported, tension climbing in her voice. "They're not on any known trajectory for Earth ships." Reynolds leaned over her shoulder, face grim. "How many?" 7 large vessels, dozens of smaller ones," Ilara said, her throat dry. "Configuration unknown. They're not ours." The colony had prepared for this theoretical moment, first contact with an alien civilization, but the reality of it sent waves of disbelief and terror through the command center. They had basic defensive capabilities, a small militia, a handful of converted mining vessels with point defense systems, and a rudimentary planetary shield that could repel meteoroids. "Send the first contact protocol transmission on all frequencies," Reynolds ordered, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "And inform Earth immediately." Ilara compiled the message, a simple greeting in multiple formats, mathematical sequences establishing intelligence, and basic information about human biology and intentions. She sent it hurtling toward the incoming vessels, knowing it would take minutes to reach them at light speed. "Message away," she confirmed. "Earth notification prepared." She hesitated. "Sir, even at maximum speed, Earth's message won't arrive for 4 years." Reynolds nodded grimly. "We're on our own." The response came within 30 minutes, not in words or mathematical sequences, but in the form of a brilliant flash on the planet's northern continent. The explosion vaporized mining outpost Gamma and its 400 inhabitants instantly. "They've fired on us," someone whispered unnecessarily. Everyone could see the mushroom cloud rising on the long-range sensors. The next shots hit the colony's small orbital defense platform and 3 mining vessels that attempted to intercept. They exploded silently in the vacuum, raining debris onto the thin atmosphere. The alien vessels, massive obsidian structures shaped like elongated hexagons, descended toward New Athens, the largest settlement. "Full evacuation to the emergency shelters," Reynolds ordered. "Activate all defenses." Ilara watched in horror as the colony's defenses, designed to protect against cosmic radiation and micrometeorites, failed spectacularly against directed energy weapons. The planetary shield lasted less than 3 minutes before collapsing. The militia's converted mining equipment, retrofitted with industrial lasers, barely scratched the alien hulls. "Why are they doing this?" Ilara whispered, frantically attempting to broadcast surrender messages. "We posed no threat." The answer came in the form of a transmission breaking through their systems, a visual of insectoid creatures with compound eyes and chitinous exoskeletons. Their mandibles clicked as they spoke, the translation matrix struggling to parse the sounds into anything resembling human language. "Resource world. Claim established. Indigenous infestation. Terminate." With clinical efficiency, the Vespid Dominion began systematic strikes against major colonial infrastructure. The hydroponics facilities, water reclamation plants, power generation stations, all targeted with precision. They weren't trying to conquer. They were exterminating. Ilara and a small team managed to evacuate the communications hub minutes before it was destroyed. They retreated to Emergency Bunker Delta, 20 kilometers outside the main settlement, and buried deep within a mountain. Built as a last resort shelter, it housed emergency supplies, a rudimentary communications array, and enough life support for 100 people for 1 year. 4 days into the assault, the situation was clear. Of the 10,000 colonists, fewer than 2,000 had survived the initial attacks. The Vespid had established ground forces, mechanical constructs controlled remotely from their ships, and were methodically hunting down survivors. "We need to fight back," insisted Major Reese, one of the few surviving militia officers. "We can't just hide and wait to die." "With what?" Dr. Kamala Singh asked bitterly. "Our heaviest weapons were destroyed in the first strike. We have mining charges and personal sidearms against whatever those things are." Reynolds, who had aged a decade in days, stared at the tactical display showing the systematic destruction of 12 years of human achievement. "We fight anyway," he said quietly. "We show them humans don't die easily." Ilara had been largely silent, working frantically at the communications array. Unlike the others, she'd been focused not on immediate defense, but on a desperate gamble. "Director," she said suddenly, "I found something in the original colony charter, something classified." "This isn't the time for historical research, Shen," Reynolds began, but stopped when she projected a document onto the main screen. "Operation Distant Thunder," she said. "A contingency plan established before the colony was even founded. There's a dormant system buried 200 meters below the colony's central plaza. It's a quantum entanglement communicator." The room fell silent. Quantum entanglement communication was theoretical, instant transmission across any distance, operating outside normal spacetime constraints. If it worked, they could contact Earth immediately, not in 4 years. "That's impossible," Dr. Singh whispered. "That technology doesn't exist." "Apparently it does," Ilara countered, "but it's experimental, power-intensive, and can only transmit a small data packet once before burning out. It was placed here as an absolute last resort. If this colony falls, Earth needs to know what happened," Reynolds said, understanding dawning. "And who did it?" "The mission was suicidal. A team would need to infiltrate the occupied central plaza, locate the buried device, activate it, and transmit crucial data about the Vespid, all while alien forces methodically exterminated human presence." "I'll go," Ilara volunteered. "I know the communication systems better than anyone." Major Reese assembled a small strike team. 6 colonists with militia training, and whatever weapons they could cobble together. Their plan was simple and desperate: create a diversion on the settlement's eastern edge, while Ilara and 2 engineers accessed the underground maintenance tunnels leading to the plaza. They moved out at night, using the dust storms common in Proxima's thin atmosphere as cover. The diversion, detonating the colony's remaining mining explosives, drew most of the mechanical hunters away. Ilara's team slipped into the tunnels, navigating by emergency lighting and memory through the colony's underbelly. What they saw broke their hearts. The beautiful domes were shattered, the carefully cultivated parks burned, bodies lying where they fell. 12 years of human hope and achievement reduced to smoking ruins in less than a week. The quantum device was exactly where the classified documents indicated, buried beneath the commemorative plaque marking the colony's founding. As the engineers worked to expose and activate it, Ilara prepared the data package. Everything they had learned about the Vespid, their weapons, their apparent motivations, and a final plea from humanity's first interstellar colony. Above ground, the diversion had worked too well. The Vespid ships had redirected their attention, bombarding the eastern sector and decimating the militia team. 3 Vespid ground units detected the activity beneath the plaza and converged on the maintenance access. "Hurry," Ilara urged as the sounds of mechanical limbs scratching against metal echoed down the tunnel. The quantum device, surprisingly small for something so important, finally powered up, its core glowing with eerie blue light. "It needs exact coordinates," the engineer said, hands shaking as he input Earth's position. "We have maybe 2 minutes before they breach the tunnel," the second engineer warned, aiming a mining laser at the access point. The device chimed its readiness. Ilara connected her data file and hesitated only briefly before adding a personal message. "They think we're alone out here. Show them we're not." She pressed the transmit button just as the tunnel hatch exploded inward. The quantum device flared blindingly bright before burning out completely, its components fusing into useless slag. The last thing Ilara saw before the Vespid unit fired was the transmission confirmation. "Package delivered." On Earth, 4 light-years away, a coded alert activated in a secure facility beneath the North American continent. Less than 3 minutes after Ilara's sacrifice, humanity learned of the Vespid Dominion's attack on their first colony. And Earth, contrary to what the Vespid believed, was far from defenseless. The reckoning. Admiral Helena Zhao stood on the bridge of the TDF Retribution, her expression carved from stone, as she reviewed the quantum transmission from Proxima Centauri. The data package was fragmentary. The experimental system had degraded part of the message, but contained enough information to understand what had happened to the colony. The Terran Defense Fleet had existed in secret for nearly 40 years, its ships constructed in orbit around Jupiter and Saturn, hidden from civilian observation and foreign surveillance. While Earth presented the facade of a peaceful civilization focused on scientific advancement, the military leadership had quietly prepared for the possibility that humanity was not alone, and that first contact might not be peaceful. "Status report," Zhao demanded, her voice level despite the rage building inside her. On the main view screen, technical analysts dissected the Vespid weapons systems from the limited data available. "The fleet is assembled, Admiral," Commander Jackson reported. 34 vessels, including 5 dreadnoughts, 12 cruisers, and supporting craft, all armed with the Prometheus systems and carrying marine deployment units. "Casualty estimates from Proxima." Jackson hesitated. "Based on the transmitted data, we believe approximately 9,000 colonists have been killed. There may be survivors in isolated shelters, but the colony's main infrastructure has been destroyed." Zhao nodded once, sharply. The Vespid chose to attack a scientific outpost without provocation. They will learn this was a fundamental miscalculation. She turned to face the fleet command staff. "I want all vessels ready for transit within 6 hours. We will deploy through the Einstein-Rosen Gateway at maximum combat readiness." The Einstein-Rosen Gateway, colloquially known as the Wormhole Drive, was humanity's most closely guarded secret. While the rest of the world believed interstellar travel required generation ships or decades of cryosleep, military scientists had quietly perfected artificial wormhole generation 30 years earlier. The technology was reserved exclusively for the Terran Defense Fleet, allowing rapid deployment to any point within 20 light-years of Sol. The Vespid had no idea what was coming. On Proxima Centauri, the situation had deteriorated further. The remaining colonists were scattered in hidden bunkers and remote outposts, fighting a desperate guerrilla war against the mechanical hunters. What had once been New Athens now served as a landing base for Vespid resource extraction equipment. The aliens were systematically stripping the planet of rare minerals, destroying what remained of the human presence as they encountered it. Ilara had survived the tunnel confrontation. Barely. Dragged from the ruins by fellow colonists who had followed as backup, she had spent 3 weeks in a hidden medical bay with severe burns and a shattered leg. Now she coordinated what remained of the resistance from a makeshift command center in a collapsed mineshaft. "They're moving into Sector 7, reported Lai Wei, a former hydroponics engineer now serving as their reconnaissance expert. the mining outpost, there still has 36 survivors. Warn them to disperse immediately, Ilara ordered, grimacing as she shifted her splinted leg. Small groups, using the cave systems we mapped last year. The hunters have trouble tracking us through the mineral deposits. Director Reynolds had been killed 2 weeks earlier, trying to protect a group of children during an evacuation. Leadership had fallen to Ilara by default. Her communications expertise and the respect she'd earned during the initial resistance making her the natural choice. "How much longer can we hold out?" asked Dr. Singh, who now served as both their medical officer and weapons specialist, having repurposed medical equipment into surprisingly effective countermeasures against the mechanical hunters. Ilara had no answer. Their supplies dwindled daily. They'd lost contact with 3 outposts in the past week alone. The Vespid showed no signs of departing, methodically extracting resources and eliminating humans with the same mechanical efficiency. "As long as it takes," she said finally. "We survive. That's what humans do." The proximity alert, salvaged from a destroyed outpost and reconfigured to detect approaching vessels, blared unexpectedly. Lai's hands flew across the makeshift console. "Multiple objects entering the system," he reported, echoing Ilara's words from weeks earlier. "But these signatures are different from the Vespid ships." Hope was dangerous. Ilara had seen too many die clinging to it. "Could be reinforcements," she cautioned. "The Vespid might be part of a larger force." "I don't think so," Lai said, voice rising with excitement. "These energy signatures, they're using fusion drives. Vespid ships use something else entirely." Before Ilara could respond, their communications array, cobbled together from salvaged components, activated without input, a voice, crisp and human, filled their bunker. "To all survivors on Proxima Centauri, this is Admiral Helena Zhao of the Terran Defense Fleet. We have received your distress call and have arrived to provide immediate military intervention. Please transmit your locations if possible. Tactical engagement with hostile forces commences in 30 minutes. Stunned silence filled the command center. Dr. Singh was the first to find her voice. "Earth sent a military fleet. How did they get here so quickly?" "The quantum device," Ilara whispered, remembering her desperate transmission. It worked. In orbit around Proxima Centauri, the 7 Vespid vessels continued their methodical operation, unaware of the spatial distortion forming at the edge of the system. When their sensors finally detected the anomaly, 34 Terran warships had already emerged. The Terran vessels were nothing like the colony ships the Vespid had easily destroyed, where the Vespid craft were organic in design, with flowing lines and chitinous exteriors. The human warships were angular, utilitarian, and bristling with weapon systems. At their center flew 5 massive dreadnoughts, each nearly twice the size of the largest Vespid vessel. Admiral Zhao stood on the bridge of the Retribution, watching tactical displays as her fleet deployed into combat formation. "Open communications on all frequencies," she ordered. "Let's see if they understand what surrender means." The Vespid responded with immediate hostility, redirecting their energy weapons toward the human fleet. Their first salvo struck the forward shields of the dreadnought Nemesis, dissipating harmlessly against defensive systems designed to withstand far greater punishment. "Well," Zhou said coldly, "they've made their choice. All vessels, weapons free. Execute the Prometheus Protocol." What followed wasn't a battle so much as an execution. The Terran fleet had been built by a species that had spent its entire history perfecting the art of warfare. The Prometheus weapons, graviton-accelerated munitions capable of bypassing conventional shields, tore through the Vespid vessels with terrifying efficiency. Kinetic kill vehicles moving at appreciable percentages of light speed reduced 3 Vespid ships to expanding clouds of debris in the opening salvo. The remaining Vespid vessels attempted to coordinate, concentrating fire on the Retribution. Their energy weapons, so devastating against the colony's basic defenses, barely registered on the dreadnought's shield monitors. "They're attempting to retreat," reported Commander Jackson as the remaining Vespid ships broke orbit, accelerating toward the system's edge. "Disable their propulsion systems," Zhao ordered. "I want one vessel intact enough for boarding. The rest can burn." Precision strikes from the cruisers severed the engines of one Vespid ship, while the others were systematically destroyed. Within 45 minutes of the Terran fleet's arrival, 6 of the 7 Vespid vessels had been reduced to debris, and the 7th drifted powerless. On the planet's surface, the surviving colonists watched in awe as brilliant flashes lit up the night sky, the death throes of the ships that had nearly exterminated them. Dropships descended from the Terran fleet, carrying Marines in powered combat armor to eliminate the remaining mechanical hunters and secure the colony sites. Ilara, standing outside their hidden bunker despite her injured leg, watched the Marines deploy with a mixture of disbelief and vindication. The quantum message had worked. Earth had responded, and with a force far beyond anything she could have imagined. "They came for us," Dr. Singh said, tears streaming down her face. They actually came. 3 days later, Ilara stood in the temporary command center established by the Terran forces. The surviving colonists, just over 1,000 people, were being treated by military medical teams. The Marines had eliminated all Vespid ground forces with ruthless efficiency. Admiral Zhao, a compact woman whose presence seemed to fill the room despite her height, faced Ilara across a tactical display. "Your warning saved countless lives, Director Chen," she said. "Without that quantum transmission, we wouldn't have known about the attack until it was far too late." "I'm not the director," Ilara said automatically. That was Reynolds. "According to the surviving colonists, you've been leading them for weeks," Zhao countered. "The title is earned." Ilara's attention was drawn to the display, showing a real-time feed from the captured Vespid vessel. Marines in heavy assault armor had breached the hull, encountering the insectoid aliens directly for the first time. "What have you learned?" she asked. "The Vespid Dominion controls 17 star systems," Zhao explained. "They're an expansionist species that views all others as competition for resources. Our analysis of their communications indicates they had no idea Earth possessed advanced military technology. They believed they were exterminating an isolated, defenseless colony." "A costly mistake," Ilara observed. "Indeed." Zhao's expression was grim. "We've extracted their navigational data. The Retribution will be departing for their home system tomorrow." Ilara looked up sharply. "Their home system? You're taking the fight to them." "The Terran Defense Fleet was not built merely to protect," Zhao said evenly. "It was built to ensure that any species that attacks humanity understands the consequences. The Vespid targeted civilians, scientists, and colonists who posed no threat. They will learn that humanity does not suffer such actions lightly." Ilara thought of her friends and colleagues, the thousands who had died in the initial assault, the weeks of desperate struggle afterward. Part of her wanted vengeance, wanted the Vespid to experience the same terror they had inflicted. Another part recognized the precipice humanity stood upon. "If you destroy their homeworld," she said carefully, "how are we different from them?" Zhao's expression softened slightly. "We're not going to exterminate them, Director Chen. We're going to introduce ourselves properly." She gestured to the display, which shifted to show the massive Retribution in orbit. "They came to Proxima Centauri believing they were dealing with a helpless species taking its first steps into the galaxy. We're going to demonstrate that humanity has teeth, and that we use them only when provoked." A show of force, Ilara realized, followed by terms of surrender and coexistence. Zhao confirmed. "The Vespid aren't the only species out there, Director. Our long-range probes have detected at least a dozen technologically advanced civilizations within 100 light-years. Some may be peaceful. Others," she gestured to the ruins visible outside. "The colony will be rebuilt," she continued, "with proper defenses this time. And the knowledge gained from your sacrifice won't be wasted." 3 months later, Ilara stood again on the observation deck, now rebuilt and reinforced with military-grade materials. The colony had been transformed. Terran Defense Force engineers had assisted in constructing new habitats, integrated defensive systems, and established a permanent military presence. Beyond the dome, a monument stood where the quantum device had been activated, a simple obelisk bearing the names of those lost in what was now called the First Contact War. A communication from Earth had arrived that morning, the first conventional transmission since the attack. It contained news that the Vespid Dominion had signed a formal peace treaty following the Retribution's visit to their homeworld. Details were classified, but the message assured that the Vespid would trouble humanity no more. More significant was the announcement that followed. Earth was declassifying the existence of the Einstein-Rosen technology and the Terran Defense Fleet. Humanity would step into the galactic community not as naive explorers, but as a unified species aware of both the wonder and danger the stars contained. "They thought we were alone," Ilara murmured, echoing the words of her desperate transmission. They were wrong. Beyond the viewport, 3 Terran cruisers maintained their silent vigil in orbit, a clear message to any watching eyes. Humanity had arrived among the stars, and it had come prepared.